Welcome to Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's the big voice guy. He's letting us know that it is another week, and this is our regular time slot. So thank the Lord. We're here on a Monday. That's what we're going to try to do. Okay? I mean, we're spread kind of thin. Got a lot of sports to cover, but we are going to try to lock in. We think we're good with the coaches' press conference times for volleyball and football going forward.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's all we need.
Little different schedule change this year. Used to just hanging out on Monday at Memorial Stadium press box all day, but it's a much shorter drive for me, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah. And I'm pretty excited, man. Welcome to another edition of how those prepositions? NEB Preps. That's Jacob Padilla, the crack statistician, the best in the business, the numero uno. And I'm ODB. I'm just here for the ride, man. I'm just here so we won't get fined. I mean, basically. Welcome, man. What a week. I don't know. Do we get more questions or answers? I feel like we have a lot more questions than answers.
Oh, we said it was going to be a loaded week one, and it certainly did not disappoint. We had some incredible games down to the wire. We had some historic blowouts. We had some surprising results. We had it all this week. And yeah. I took in some volleyball this weekend as well, so kind of double dip.
Yeah. So for the SMU match, full disclosure, I had it on the dash on my phone, but listened to Courtney and Lauren over the air, which was hilarious. But we at some point we're going to take advantage of your volleyball expertise, because I want to know what's going to happen at the L2 spot between Bateman and Krause, and like it could be a minute before we get a solidified lineup.
Yeah, well, John Cook wants to know that answer too. So once he figures out, then I'll be able to tell you.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah.
It's like I was listening to him in the pregame, and there are some players he likes hitting from the outside more than he does, or from the back line than he does the front line, and he's going to kind of maneuver chess pieces. But volleyball will be for another day, another segment, although we will be taking advantage of Jacob Padilla.
Although I did check out some high school volleyball this weekend as well. This is Nebraska Preps post game, and shout out to Papio South, who won the Bellevue West Invitational, reigning Class A champions.
Are they pretty good?
They're pretty good. They played an incredible third championship match, 3-set match with it's the best 2 out of 3 in tournament formats with Omaha Skutt, last year's Class B champion, and several Class B champions in a row.
Are they up to 9?
8? It's hard to keep track, but
it's something like that. It's ridiculous. So, whatever.
Full disclosure, Papio South won the first one. They were up in the second, and I was rooting for them to win because I needed to get down to Lincoln, and they had 4 chances to close it out in the second set and couldn't do it. And Skutt came back and won that thing, extended it to a third set, which also went back and forth. But I ended up walking in at the Devaney Center with like 5 points left of the second set. So I don't even know why I drove down there for that, outside of just I want to be there for every match that I can. But yeah, it was worth it though, sticking around to see that match between Papio South and Skutt.
Where aren't you? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, you're going to catch me in mileage, and the only excuse I have is because I go to Lincoln all the time in Nebraska City. Yeah. You'll go anywhere at any time, almost at any point in the day.
I prefer not having to do that much driving, but we'll make it work. If there's some good games, I'll go anywhere. But yeah, just freshmen for Papio South, Lyric Judson, a middle blocker, Cam Bales from outside hitter, both came up huge down the stretch in the clutch. Had some big games for them. Obviously, Lauren Medic is a name I think volleyball fans already know. Heading to South Dakota, she's a senior, the leader on that team, but. And Charlie Solomon, who is kind of a combo setter, hitter, do-it-all type of player. All three, they all played well this weekend, so those are just some names to know. So I just want to hit on a little bit of volleyball off the top here, since I spent all weekend or all day at Bellevue West there. Shout out to the Titans. Now let's get on to the football.
Where do you want to start? B, A?
We'll start. Well, I guess let's start with B since bit of controversy right off the top there.
Listen, I've kind of been there, not for a deciding touchdown, but a couple of key calls late. This one has not sat well with the Skyhawk faithful. It has not sat well at all. I've actually seen the huddle vantage point too, not just the sideline view, which was kind of tough to discern, even though that looked kind of definitive. But I don't think, at least in my opinion, there's no doubt that was a very tough call late, especially when Scott, despite turning the ball over at inopportune times, found themselves in a position to win that game.
Yeah, and final score was 14-13 Bennington over Scott in that clash of the Class B contenders there. And we're talking about Bennington right at the end, chance, go ahead, score. Looked like he was probably short. Like, it was an incredible play by the Scott defense to stonewall in there. The official down the line called it a touchdown, called he had broken the plane with the ball, and gave them the touchdown. So tough way to lose if you're Scott. But I think certainly in the coaches poll, the coaches did not fault them at all. It's Bennington 1, Scott 2, even despite the loss for the Skyhawks there. And I think that's certainly fair based on the way that game played out.
More surprised that the way that Scott played, or that Bennington had a little problem, especially on offensively, replacing some of the firepower from a year ago.
It shouldn't be too surprising. We kind of gotten used to them just reloading, plugging in somebody new, and producing close to the same results the last few years. But like, that's like Trey Bird. Those are some big shoes.
Your leading quarterback, who was a historic winner. Yeah. You're a talented running back. Isaac Connor at the wideout. That's hard to replace.
Yeah. And you had a couple of Birds sliding in there. Some great quarterback play over the last however many years. But so it was kind of, they're figuring some things out. Payne Salmon as a kind of dual threat QB there. Wasn't terribly efficient through the air. Did have a turnover. Had a rushing touchdown. Quentin Archer had a solid game, but not necessarily the kind of the explosive numbers we've come to see there. 64 yards on the ground and a score, and 3 catches for 51 yards. So continuing that kind of dual threat running back option there for them. But yeah, just that Scott defense looks like they're ready to play.
Yeah, listen, that's a physical bunch. And I think, I don't know, I wonder if that's what the staff expected too, because they kind of played it pretty close to the vest in terms of their expectation level. They kind of were just a school that looked like they were kind of laying in the cut.
Yeah. So yeah, you this early in the season, you don't want to open the year with a call that obviously a lot of people are going to be thinking about for a while, and that was kind of dominated the talk on Twitter. And
you think that could come back to matter?
Very much so. But the good news is, again, Scott wasn't penalized there in the rankings, and they've got the rest of the season to kind of to show that, hey, we're just as good as anybody in this class, and hopefully we'll see them meeting again in the postseason.
Yeah. When you credit too, because I know the controversy will be the big thing, but man, just giving Bennington some credit too for putting themselves in position to have an opportunity to win when there wasn't much going in that one through 3.5 quarters.
Yeah. Again, it took right down to the wire for that final score. 2 touchdowns apiece there, basically. So low scoring game, but it kind of came down to who had the ball last and the judgment of the officials. So two great teams that they'll be a top Class B all season long. Elkhorn North was not in action this week.
Yep,
had to bye after the week 0 game. Waverly had an impressive win over Elkhorn, 35-14. Quarterback Nolan Moss, kind of dual threat, 160 yards and 2 touchdowns passing, 44 yards and a touchdown rushing. Drew Moser, only 2 catches, both of them in the end zone, 2 touchdowns for him. So impressive showing from Waverly right off the bat against an Elkhorn team that still kind of hanging around. Obviously, they're replacing a lot from last year, but the coaches saw enough to keep them in the rankings at 10 in Mike Sauter's coaches poll.
When you talk about what Waverly was able to do, like kind of having to remember 2 years ago, lost that super talented senior group. Figured out last year that they could play a couple of different ways on offense, especially via the air. Do you think it would come to fruition this quickly?
I mean, they've got a good program. They've been able to kind of plug and play. That coaching staff, again, like you said, adjusting to the talent they have. They've continued to.
If you asked them 3 years ago, hey, do you think you'd play this way? Like, look at me like, come on, DB. Yeah. Come on, DB.
Yep, but they're obviously going to be run first if like that's what they want to do, but not afraid to throw it if they have to and keep defenses honest there. So they're at 4. At 5 is Scottsbluff, an impressive 34-7 win. Tough trip for Lincoln Pius X heading out there, but Nate Kelly. First start there.
Here we go.
142 yards rushing, 3 total touchdowns, and 3 touchdowns. Sebastian Boyle, 129 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns, 363 yards as a team on the ground for the Bearcats there. And even more impressive than that, they held Pius to 4 total rushing yards on 18 carries.
Here's the thing, and I know it's a little early, and you coach him in multiple sports. So could I at least say maybe the whole winner thing is a little premature, but he has characteristics of somebody that knows how to win games. He may have to do it a little bit more, like to get, the winner adjective, but he exudes all the characteristics. Kelly exudes all the characteristics of somebody that understands what it takes to win in crunch time.
Yeah, and friend out west, Chris Cottrell.
He does a good job.
He was not afraid to throw out that title already. And reading his tweet about, he kind of just offered his thoughts. You can go check out his Twitter feed, Off Air on Point, about the Bearcats, and reading off his description.
He's as good. He's as good as there is with coverage out west too. Like, he is extremely thorough.
Yeah, no doubt. Anytime I have a question about anybody out there, he's a guy I go to. But kind of reading his description, and Nate was like, "Yep, that sounds familiar." I feel like I've seen all those same characteristics
as when you had him on the court.
So, but yeah, that's going to be a tough duo with Kelly and Boyle out there, and obviously really impressive defensive performance to open the season for a defense that had to replace a lot from last year,
especially in the interior.
Yeah, so impressive start for Scottsbluff there at 5, and then Plattsmouth. York blew out Lexington.
My back-to-back dark horses, York and Plattsmouth. Yep. Those were the 2 teams I felt like that weren't in the hunt in that upper echelon, that big 3, that I felt like have a chance to make some noise.
Yeah. Didn't see the stats from that York game. Didn't see who played well, but 46-0. Sounds like everybody played well. Plattsmouth 30-27 over Blair. We talked about Blair expectations coming into the year. Rough start, 0-2 here, but again, 3-point win there for Plattsmouth, pulling that out. Dominic Versalino, 101 yards on the ground and a touchdown. Quarterback Gabe Villamonte, 130 yards passing, completed 8 of his 10 passes with a touchdown.
Is that efficient? I'm not sure. Is 8 out of 10 good?
Pretty good. And he had 46 yards on the ground as well. And then Gage Olson, 2 catches, 77 yards and a touchdown, broke off a long one, and 5 tackles and a pick on defense as well. So impressive for Plattsmouth. Again, we know that great team a couple years ago had to replace a incredible player in Meneses, and looks like they've kind of reloaded after kind of a rebuilding year last year, getting back into it this year with starting the season with a great win.
Yeah, and then Seward and Gross come in at 8 and 9 respectively, both coming off dubs.
Yeah, Seward knocking off Norris after Norris got that win week 1. Again, they're playing again, that schedule, tough team right off the bat, but yeah, 14-7 for Seward there, and then 35-16 for Gross to close that out. Big games in Class B this week. Got Bennington, they're hosting Plattsmouth on Friday. That's probably the biggest one. Seward's got Pius at 10th, and then Norris against Elkhorn. Again, another tough one there.
There's that middle portion in B that's going to go on this round robin schedule in terms of playing one another. It may leave you with a few more questions and answers, at least early on, as it could kind of cannibalize each other.
And that's what happens. The class has shrunk so much with so many teams going up, so many teams going down, and not really anybody joining. So like, I mean, I'd have to go count. It's the smallest class, right? It's got to be.
Yeah.
So kind of you got the talent consolidated there, and the same number of teams schedule wise just worked out that they played each other a lot, something like that. So yeah, we'll see a lot of good matchups throughout the season in B, and whoever makes it to the postseason will definitely be well tested, particularly in this area.
Want to jump up to A?
Yes, sir. Man, how about those West Side Warriors?
That's not a bad football team.
Tough night for the old Junior Jays there.
Well, again, I think it's a better team than that score showed.
So the score was 57-7, the final there, and so you guys start off, score the first 2 touchdowns. Prep gets one back. I think Wurgler through the air there.
Yeah, he got a 50-50 ball, completed to Burt. I thought it was good coverage by Hurst. He comes down with it. They took 3 downs to get it in. They had first and goal from the 1 foot line. We thought we were on the verge of getting the stop and made a good play on a boot and got it to within 14-7.
So 14-7 near the end of the first quarter.
Yeah. Prep
kicks it off. Goes out of bounds. Most teams, all right, we'll take the ball at the 35.
Yeah.
That's not what happened.
No.
What did happen, Damon?
I mean, I handle the kickoff return on the special teams. Now, full disclosure, we did talk about this when we were scouting Prep in Bellevue West, and Coach Sikora said, our offensive coordinator, he said, hey, I just don't know why more teams don't have teams re-kick. If they kick it out of bounds, there's, you got to take a look at that. And I didn't think much of it. And the official asked me when the ball went out of bounds, and I said, no, we want to make them kick it again. And so there was a little break, right? Our offense came out, their defense came out, and they said, no, we want to make them kick it again. So I was a little bummed that the coverage team got a chance to recover. Yeah. But the goal was to make them kick it again. And
they kicked it again.
Yeah.
And Caleb Benning, 89 yards to the house.
Yeah.
One of 2 touchdowns. He also caught a 27-yard receiving touchdown, returned 4 punts for 74 yards, had 3 tackles and an interception.
Yeah.
So
and a forced fumble too, which
there you go.
I think I was the happiest about. But it was a full quarter and a half. Yeah. We wanted to make sure that we continued to work on our depth. And so Coach Lamanji is a ton of respect for Coach Yonk. And that was a young team. It was so physical early. Prep was losing a few guys early. It's a physical football game. We didn't have one receiver with more than a catch. So we ran the ball a good chunk of the time. I think we finished like 36 for 280 or something like that.
Jamez Ross talked about how good of an offseason he had. 17 carries, 128 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Also caught a pass for 15 yards. Talk about efficiency. Anthony Rizak, 5 of 6 for 104 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 5 carries for 72 yards and another touchdown.
He's unbelievable. I know. I get it. He plays on your team. This, that. I'm just telling you, his personality traits. It's hard to lead other good players, and he does it with such ease. It's natural to him. He's a great decision maker, and because we're kind of seeing it down the road a little bit with another team that we'll talk about. It's not always just about having good players. Yeah. There has to be a certain level of culture and a pecking order that allows you to be led. And Anthony Rizak is as good as I've seen.
And I remember when you were talking to me about before, you were so excited about what he was showing that sophomore year. You had a veteran starter who had put in the time and earned the job there, but you're like, we can't keep this kid off the field. We're going to have to go with
play him. You had to play him and let him learn on the fly. And it's going to pay dividends. He is a calm, cool customer, and he's extremely talented.
Yeah. The other touchdown went to Keenan Cotton for 56 yards, that's kind of your speed threat there on the outside, playing DB now, more of an option on offense as well, coming over after transferring last year. So, really impressive performance by Westside. Clear, obviously, number 1, and really impressive performance by the new number 2 as well. in Omaha North, 25-7 against Bellevue West.
Did not see that one coming.
Not quite like
I
that.
kind of gave the close advantage to Bellevue West just because it was North's opener, right? I worried about maybe some early penalties or special teams or something like that, and it just didn't turn out to be the case.
Chris Schmidt on the afternoon show Friday afternoon asked me, like, all right, we know West Side, we know Bell West, kind of who else are you seeing that you could put in that tier that could climb up there? And it's like, keep an eye on this North Bell West game. Like, North has a chance here to show that they belong. They've got pieces. Can they put together the full team performance to be among the best teams in the state? And that they certainly made their claim with that win. So first of all, defensively, limited at Bellevue West to 240 yards, just 58 on the ground after they had a great rushing performance against Creighton Prep. 185 passing, but it wasn't efficient. And they racked up almost 400 yards themselves, and pretty even. 187 passing, 200 rushing. So really balanced
that's
offense.
Scary if that's the way that they play offense. This isn't your mom and dad's Omaha North team. Circo has shown that he can get the ball outside the numbers.
Well, yeah, he had 200 yards on just 8 completions, 3 touchdowns. He also rushed in a touchdown, short one there. Jaron Cannon, 19 carries, 167 yards.
Opened the game with a 70-some-odd yarder.
72, I think it was, something like that. So that obviously some speed there. Champ Davis, unbelievable game. 6 catches, 183 yards, and 3 touchdowns. They just could not guard him. And Bell West has some talented DBs out there too.
So far, I think, because I think you could make the case, the best 2 players on the field, at least Friday night, both were wearing blue and gold. And it's scary when one of them wasn't Donovan Jones, who's a good player and is a really good player in his own regard, right? But between Champ Davis and Tyson Terry, man, like that was impressive. I'm only, like I said, I was telling those guys, I'm only through about halfway through the third quarter, but North's physicality versus Bellevue West was caught me off guard just a little. I knew North was capable, but I felt like Bellevue West would ramp it up in week 2 after kind of hearing some criticisms behind the scenes after they're showing against Prep. But I mean, good on North for taking it to them.
Yeah, we talked about the size up front with Terry. Samarius Henderson had a sack, and then the speed on the back end. That North defense has a chance to be really, really good. Bellevue West was without Isaiah McMorris, dealing with the hamstring issue. Out Charlie Gwinner. CJ Goff did what he did what he could. 64 yards on the ground, 66 through the air. He was their best offensive weapon there. Danny K went under 50% completion, 172 yards, at a touchdown and a pick.
Little concern there for you?
Yeah, I mean, through 2 weeks hasn't been sharp. It just, he and his receivers haven't necessarily created a bunch of separation down the field, and he hasn't put the ball on the money and through tight windows. Like they got to get that offense going somehow. And Davon Hall caught 4 of 8 targets for 24 yards, did have a touchdown. But again, guy that talented, you want better efficiency than catching half the balls thrown his way.
Just hasn't been able to get behind defenses either.
And so that's on both end, receiver and quarterback, timing the whole operation. Whaley caught 2 catches for 44 yards. But yeah, they just not very dynamic offensively right now. They got to get some of that outside help to support Goff, who I think is a pretty good player and will have a good season for them. They just need to be more versatile there. And so we'll see. It's early in the year, but they certainly have a lot of rough tape to learn from moving forward. Also, some rough tape from Lincoln Southeast heading up to Elkhorn. Obviously, that was the game pushed back from Thursday night to Friday.
This one probably, and there's 3 candidates. The way this game actually broke out was the one that surprised me the most.
Yeah, and I was watching a little bit of the stream, trying to not the best way to watch a game, to identify players and everything, but
and we had to start to get ready to meet at like 4:50. But I mean, I did get a good sense early on because it happened early.
I did see the 92-yard run for Carson Ronner, who. Man, he had a couple of big runs there. 35-7 was the final for Elkhorn South. Really impressive showing. Ronner was 8-9 for 102 yards and 8 carries for 160 yards on the ground. 2 total touchdowns. and was done after one series in the third quarter, I believe.
Did not see that coming.
And so obviously he broke off some big ones, but they had running back to Gavin Shanahan and Jay Sutko, just a sophomore.
Shanahan's a handful too.
And man, Sutko, his second touchdown rush, I think he had two while I was watching. The second one, man, broke off a couple of dudes. Just really impressive, weaving through traffic, breaking a tackle, getting to the end zone. Shanahan had a touchdown or two as well in there. So that man. And they held Southeast at 205 total yards, 59 passing, 146 rushing. So impressive showing on both sides of the ball for Elkhorn South, who comes in at a firm number 3 there, and great start to the season.
And if you're Lincoln Southeast, you don't have time to lick your wounds either, because you got Lincoln East coming up, and then you got Papio La Vista, who was impressive in Thursday, week 1. So it doesn't get any easier.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But one of the best games, maybe the best game of the week, was the Millard battle. Millard South 28, Millard West 27, with a missed extra point being the difference. Like, that is a brutal way to lose there.
Especially no love lost between those two schools at all.
Nope.
And that may be the nastiest of the rivalry, right? I mean, they've got coaches that don't say the other school's name, and it's just what it is. But I'm going to say that, and nobody wants any moral victories, and Coach Peterson could care less what I have to think. But I felt like that score surprised me the most of the three. And it's tough between the Southeast game, but there were some Southeast fans that weren't real sure about this team, and I do know Elkhorn South is good.
Yes.
So that okay, you could convince me if it snowballed, especially because Southeast is a little one-dimensional. But I know for sure Millard South up front with Laquana and company are a nightmare, and I did not expect Millard West to have that much success offensively. This score surprised me the most, and it definitely got my attention. And now I feel better putting Millard West in the same discussion as Papio as kind of a quiet dark horse.
You mentioned Laquana, 9 tackles, 2 for loss. Aiden Miller had 7 tackles, half of them for loss.
How about that tandem?
11 total tackles for losses for that Millard South defense.
Yeah.
And despite that, Millard West, despite being behind schedule so often, 27 points. And again, the difference was a mixed extra points. So
Peterson's a tough customer at quarterback too.
Yep. And they got some weapons as well for him to utilize. But we talked about kind of the skill talent on that Millard South team. Jet Tomala, the sophomore, 16-26 for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Nolan Feller, 25 carries for 130 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Workmanlike.
4 catches for 88 yards and another touchdown. So over 200 total yards from scrimmage, 3 touchdowns. Just a monster first game for Feller, who's like 5'8" maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But big fan.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been watching him for a long time.
Little guy, but plays big. And then Marion Jackson, 4 catches, 89 yards there for the Patriots there. So a lot of different guys contributing well, and great first win for Millard South. Millard West now doesn't get any easier. That they go to Omaha North this week.
Yeah, color me intrigued with that one though. That's got a chance to be a good one.
And Millard South is hosting Elkhorn South. So
I think one thing, if you're looking for a silver lining for Millard West, you saw about as good a D-line as you're going to see with anybody not named Tyson Terry.
Yeah.
So
at least you'll be
you're well prepared, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you see a Laquana and a Terry back to back. You see Aiden Miller and a Henderson in back to back weeks. They won't be, I don't think, in awe, because that Millard South D-line put in work.
Yeah. You mentioned Papillion La Vista. That was the game I was at on Thursday. They're coming in at number 6 this week after impressive 28-10 win against Millard North over at Buell. It was 7-6 Millard North at halftime, and Papio just took over in the second half.
And that's an impressive defensive performance.
100%. And that's the thing. Like, watching that Miller North offense, they just got to find a way to get more dynamic.
More touches for Mooberry and Vermas.
100%.
Yeah.
Vermas, Mooberry didn't touch the ball on offense. Yeah. And then Vermas, they didn't, I mean, I think they're playing mainly on defense, and he's in there on offense, but they didn't give him a lot of touches. I think he only touched the ball a few times, but they just pounding it up the middle with Bogats. They just
good player, but 18. I think he finished with like 18 for 65 or something like that.
Yeah, like that's not going to keep you on schedule. And
Prestito and Ingwerson, and I mean, I'm telling you, Coach Williams offensively can put you in some binds.
Peyton Prestito was the best player on the field on Thursday night. 19 carries for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also, little halfback pass over the top to Ingwerson for a touchdown, pulling out some trickeration there. Also had 6 tackles, including a couple of big hits. Tavian Pirtle was efficient there, 6 of 10 for 100 yards and a touchdown. And Caden Bush, man, 2 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown, both on screen passes, both on like 3rd and 4th and long, or 3rd and long, 4th.
One was 4th and 12.
Yeah, and like that's just an absolute backbreaker if you're in Miller North. Yeah. You've got him backed up. You got a chance to get off the field, and to give up like the screen passes. Like, how many times have we seen like, well, we don't have a 4th and 20 play or 3rd and 20 play. Yeah. We're just run a screen pass, get what we can. Maybe we break a tackle. It almost never works. It worked twice.
They got us twice 2 years ago, so I don't feel I'm not shaking my head at Miller North at all. They got us too. He's just got good timing, well designed. I think Lindenmeyer was the culprit back then when they got us. We just couldn't get him to the ground. But it's Coach Williams is crafty. He does a good job.
Yeah. So impressive showing for Papio again. I mean, Miller North's they've got to get better up front if they want to play the way that they've always played.
That's the thing.
You've got to be able to control the line of scrimmage better than they did. Granted, Papio, they've got some size on that defensive line with Garen Maley and Ingwerson.
And some that O-line played well for some young guys.
Kale Johnson flew around there, made a ton of tackles for them. Prestito had a few big hits, like I mentioned. So it was an impressive defensive performance, but Miller North, they've got some things to figure out their offensively. Obviously, we've talked about they've got some talented pieces there. Just got to find how they need to play to be successful.
And momentarily, they have some bragging rights because they come in at number 6 in the coaches poll, and Papio South, who's 2-0, is not ranked.
Yeah, they're receiving votes, but not in there. Coming off a 43-7 win against Fremont, and they'll face off. I mean, another monster game for Derek Jones, 12 carries for 164 yards, 3 touchdowns. Schuler efficient again. So that Papio battle, that should be fun on Friday night. It's amazing how many great games we had week 1 and week 2 to start things off.
Yeah, coming in at number 7, 1-0. I think a team both you and I like is the Kearney Bearcats.
And again, so last year they had to replace so much, and all those dudes that stepped in, like they had like 1 or 2 starters coming back, and they put together a strong season. Again, lots of those guys last year were seniors, and now they've got new quarterback, they've got new guys carrying the ball. And those guys stepped in and performed. It was a 41-28 win against Lincoln East. Griffin Novacek, a junior, 11 of 13 for 174 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air, and 9 carries for 73 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Pretty darn good first start there.
And the difference there was that second quarter. It was explosive because I think Kearney only ran like 50 plays, but they had 21 points in the second quarter. And that ultimately was the difference.
Yeah. Abel Molina, 9 carries for 114 yards, 2 touchdowns, 6 tackles, 3 for loss. Again, another new name. Eli Randolph, 13 carries for 90 yards and a rush, caught a 22-yard touchdown. And Xander Ruling, 4 catches, 93 yards and a touchdown. So a lot of different guys contributed for the Bearcats now to get that week 1 win.
How about Novacek with the 9 for 73 on the ground, and then he's throwing like true dual threat too. Changes the way that really they can play on offense.
Yep. Gretna took care of business against Blair. 40-14 was the final. It was 40-0 going in the fourth quarter. And then I think Burt got a couple of touchdowns back against the reserves. And that's kind of, we're wondering about kind of the school split of Gretna. Maybe that's where it hurts them this first year in the depth. They still got plenty of top end talent there, and foremost among them, Alex Wilcoxon, pretty darn good start, 100 yards passing, 91 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns. Obviously didn't have to play the whole game there.
And you talk about a winner.
Yeah. So
Gretna,
yeah, they'll be good again this week. They got that feisty Central bunch who.
We'll see right away where they're at.
Yeah, 78-0 win against Northwest in week 1. Basically, everybody played just a little bit. They didn't have to really do much. It was 44-0 after the first quarter. So that'll be curious. I don't know how much those starters for Central actually had to play. Yeah. So that'll be a tough one. We talked about
some good matchups though, right?
Yeah. 78-0 there for Central, but Lincoln North Star 93-0 against Benson. And we talked about a lot of those Benson kids transfer over to Central with the coaching change. But they have like 28 kids out for football.
I've seen some different numbers, anywhere from 19 to 28.
That's going to be rough.
It is.
You hate to see something like that. And I mean, that thing was going like Spencer Hall, college football, got hold of that game and tweeted about it. Like, that's not the kind of attention we want. I feel bad for those kids who obviously doing
out there
everything
trying to do what they can.
Just not in a position to succeed. So we'll see kind of what happens with Benson moving forward.
We got some shout outs, Shane. You may have to dim the music just a smidge. Why my man Jacob Padilla runs through a few guys that he may want to highlight, if there are any.
Not this week. It's still figuring out. It's tough to figure out, like going from 11-man to 8-man, 6-man, and kind of how to sort that thing out and decide, all right, what's a great performance versus this just kind of
that's code, Shane, for, you know what? You can't get any compliments just easy. You got to earn it with Jacob Padilla.
Yes, you do.
Plenty of shout outs throughout the show. We mentioned a lot of kids there. So I think we're good to end it on that.
Where are you going Friday?
Not sure yet. We got to figure out where Sauter's going. Got to figure out where the other Hurrdat Sports team is going, and then I'll do one of them. So he put out 6 games for his game of the week there.
I know.
So that tells you how excited he is about the matchups this week. But I'm looking at that Millard South, Elkhorn South. If I've got my choice, that'll probably be the one I end up. But we'll see kind of how the voting goes.
I can tell you, I'll probably be at 89th and Pacific watching Grand Island and Westside.
Yeah,
just watching though. That's another week. Rapid fire. It is Nebraska Preps postgame. That's one of the best in the business. Jacob Padilla. I am ODB. We will be back next week on Monday. Don't miss us.
A Hurrdat Sports Network production.